Well, thanks for being here with me.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of crazy.
it is crazy. It is crazy.
Te- Technologies stink, man, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so I got your contact info from Rich, who I interviewed before, and he said you own Adagio water features. I've done a little bit of research on that, but tell me like what you do. Like, tell me what it is.
Yeah. So Adagio Water Features is a manufacturer. We manufacture decorative waterfalls. So we sell to homes, offices, you name it. We sell, anybody that'll take it. But we sell decorative waterfalls. But we're kind of limited on the style that we do. We've kind of
Yeah,
defined exactly what we do. We do kind of what we call a water wall style or a panel style waterfall. So,
yeah.
and we sell them as kits, like ready to be installed wherever they're going to be. So they're not like a build-in. It's more like a kit ready to go. Most contractors, anybody can install them.
Yeah, that's sweet. So because I've seen like your Instagram page. I followed that since I heard about it, and then I've seen a couple of them. I don't know if they were from you, but I've seen them like in homes and stuff. So how do you like go about like how does someone like install that? Do you have to have have to be close to a water supply, or is its own?
Yeah, so it's self-contained.
Okay.
It's water, like an autofill system is an option.
Yeah. Okay.
But most of what we do, 99% of the units that we sell, self-contained. You just manually fill them up.
Oh wow.
We recommend like a distilled water,
Yeah.
or you can
Sure.
use tap water. You just have to clean them more often. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty easy. We kind of designed them to really go like just about anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
without planning, the construction or anything around
Yeah.
the water feature. You can do remodels, you can do afterthoughts. So yeah, they're just designed. The wall-mounted ones are designed to be hung on any 16-inch on-center like wall,
Mhm.
standard wall. And the freestanding ones, of course, they can go anywhere. They're just
Yeah.
sitting on the floor. Yeah.
That's sweet. So how'd you come up with that idea?
I did not actually.
Oh, all right.
So um, I always joke. I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, it's been my lifelong dream to be a waterfall guy. Right? It's not
Yeah.
at all. So the guy that actually came up with the first kind of design, the style, a guy by the name of Jeff. Uh, my timing might be a little off, but like in the late '80s,
Okay.
he was actually going to school up in Ogden, and as I understand it, he kind of put the first waterfall together as his high school shop, metal shop project, and kind of an interesting, uh, metal shop project. Got the idea.
Just to come up with that right out of there.
Yeah,
Weird.
it's weird. In fact, I've got a picture of that first one that he built in another part of the office over here. But
Yeah.
and he garnered some interest. There was like a couple newspaper articles written about it, and as I understand it, he kind of ran. He sold a few of them here and there, more from kind of an artist standpoint, out of his garage, that kind of
Right.
thing. Um, Came up with a couple designs. Anyway, he was looking for some venture capital in like the late 90s. So, 10, 11 years later. And at the time, my uncle, Alan Combs, and his business partner, Dan Jones, were doing a little bit of venture capital. And they met up. And at the time, back then, my uncle owned a part of a small fabrication, kind of a job shop facility.
Right.
And so they thought it might be a good mix. So they worked out, they reorganized, they kind of formed an entity whose name was Adagio Collection, and they went into business. And so this would have been like early 2000, like August of 2000. I think they kind of did a pseudo organization in the
Yeah.
early months of the year 2000, and I think our official organization date was like somewhere in August of 2001. And so August of 2001, they made it official. They invested some money, and as you can imagine, what happened shortly after August of 2001 was 9/11. So
Yeah.
it just as they were beginning to market and get going, the world just changed. And
Yeah.
so they stumbled a little bit. They ended up splitting ways with Jeff. It just wasn't a conducive partnership. And so Jeff kind of went off and did his own thing. And Dan and Alan were trying to decide what to do with this idea. It was an idea. They had a little bit of inventory. They didn't really make anything. They had job shops kind of all over this area that they made components and they kind of put it together and they'd ship it. They're selling, 2 or 3 water features a month, maybe something like that.
Sure. So kind of small at first.
Very small. Yeah. I mean, just sporadic. They put a bunch of money into it. And so anyway, at the time I was going to BYU and I was going to business school there. And so this would have been, by now we're like in the summer of 2003. So it had largely sat idle. The concept had largely sat idle for about a year. We just didn't do much with it. They're trying to decide what to do, trying to grow it, but they didn't want to put a bunch of money into it because it was just kind of they had other businesses they were running, other things was the priority. So anyway, I finished an internship in Salt Lake City with a commercial real estate developer that's kind of the direction I was wanting to go into.
Right.
And I had 6 months until I graduated. I was just looking for something to do. And my uncle said, "Hey, you want to sell Waterfalls?" I was like,
right on.
"No, I don't want to sell Waterfalls. tell me a little bit more about it." And so anyway, I kind of went to work with them. I wasn't really paid. I just kind of was like earn a commission if I could sell some. I didn't sell very many because it was just really hard. Like we didn't really have a system of manufacturing. We didn't really have anything. We had a concept. We had a few samples. We had a couple customers.
Yeah.
And but it was just really hard to kind of go out and pitch this idea when it was just an idea. I didn't really have much to go on. No photos, no videos, nothing.
That'd be really hard to sell.
Yeah.
Like from a sales point of view, dang.
Yeah. It was tricky. I mean, it was just a new bit. I mean, essentially it was a new business. They had 1 or 2 product designs and they had like a little bit of inventory, but most of the inventory they had was obsolete. It was unusable.
Wow.
So like the end of 2003, I was there just a couple months. I learned about the products as best I can. I was working closely with the different job shops that were manufacturing the different components.
Yeah.
And, trying to figure out how we can make this work. And I was going to go off and do my own thing. Like I was supposed to graduate in December of 2003. And, and I was just going to go do my own thing. And they approached me and said, "Hey, you're the only person that really knows anything about this. If you don't do something with it, no one will." And so we kind of struck a management deal, some equity, some goals. And they said, "Hey, they set a very minimal budget. This is what we can do." And so on January 1st of 2004, it was mine. They said, "You're the guy, do it. You succeed, great. If you fail, too bad."
Yeah, right.
And so, that's what we did. I mean, so I put together like a super basic marketing plan that basically consisted of getting pictures
Yeah, right.
and maybe going to a couple trade shows. And so we started growing the business. And early on, we saw a lot of really good success.
That's really cool because I think that when a lot of people hear, like when you start a business like that, like, or when you inherit a business like that, right? Like your uncle started or something like that, they think it's just, you just fly through it. Right. And so it's kind of fun to hear that, like, you kind of got it handed to you just with like almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
No marketing plan, no nothing. So then you got into manufacturing the actual features though, right? That was probably a big game changer.
Huge game changer. We actually didn't do that until the Great Recession of like 2007, 2008. So,
oh wow.
Initially, for the first really 3 or 4 years, we were just essentially an added value, company. We designed, and then we would outsource all manufacturing to job shops around the valley.
Wow.
And so,
like anybody who would take them, like
we had plastic fabrication, we had metal fabrication, we had stone fabrication, we had more metal fabrication. we had
Wow.
crating, we had all these, and we would just come together in this little shop, assemble it all together, put it together, package it, and ship it. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I mean, we didn't manufacture, we didn't have any equipment other than just basic packaging equipment.
Right.
And when 2007 came, in 2008, I mean, our world changed. Everybody's world's changed. We learned a couple of things
Yeah.
back then that have really helped us. We discovered that we had discovered some very unique things about our industry that we thought were well known that were not
Oh, wow.
and we had competitors. I mean, there's probably in the U.S. there was probably at that time maybe 5 or 6 competitors that were kind of in the space.
Yeah.
Some of them had little unique product designs, but largely we were competing for the same market share.
Yeah.
And so we discovered that we had some unique competitive advantages over our competitors.
Right.
That we honestly was mostly accidental. You know, it was just like,
That's awesome.
when you're lucky, you're lucky, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
that's
stupid,
right.
but it's
Let's
those
go.
little tiny things
Mhm.
that so often make some big differences. But and then we discovered also that, and this probably we should have known this, but we didn't. That a big portion of our customers, and by big I mean maybe 50 to 60% at the time of our customers, are not affected by economic downturn. And so,
Wow.
you know, because we're selling a high-end product to a
Yeah,
high-end
sure.
client.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, if you're going to spend $12,000 for a waterfall for your entryway, you're probably not living paycheck to paycheck. You know,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's
you're
not
probably laying off employees.
it's not like an entry level requirement. So although our sales did drop in the kind of during the recession, they didn't like put us out of business. So we were actually in an okay position. And so what we started doing is we started buying up our suppliers. And
Wow.
and so we bought a couple of companies, we bought some additional equipment. And so we went in this time span of about a year, we went from 0 vertical integration to almost complete vertical integration.
Wow.
And we went from making nothing to raw materials in one side, finished product out the other side. And
That's
that was
awesome.
a huge learning curve. I mean, none of us were manufacturers. We were marketing guys, we were business guys, and we just kind of figured it out, you know, and we knew the basics, but we had to figure it out.
That's amazing. That's amazing because it's kind of like that whole concept, like that I'm sure you learned starting this business and that you learned starting, you probably learned in school where it's like, you know, you got to commit first and then kind of like figure it out as you go. Right. Because, and you did this all during the recession.
Yeah, it was largely during the recession. It was,
wow.
So yeah, I mean, by nature, we're very conservative guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, we were very aggressive on paying off debt, and going into it, we had no debt. And we actually had some cash reserves, and we were in a very financially stable position. And so we had the opportunity when other companies weren't that way to go in and get just deals. I mean, we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and just all of this stuff because we had really played our cards close to the chest. We'd been super conservative. And so we went into these companies that we were buying equipment from banks. We were buying equipment from defunct companies. We were buying equipment from companies going out of business. Not that I'm happy that they had failed, but that
it is what it is almost, right?
Right. But we were in a position to do that because of, you know, during our years of plenty, and we had grown really fast and we had done really, really well. It would have been super easy to just drain cash out of the business, but we didn't do that. And
wild.
It put us in a good position.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that though. Like even you know, some really big companies, really successful small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they really capitalized on that recession. They really propelled them. You know, why do you think you went? Why do you think you went that route, playing your cards close to the chest? And besides, like, I mean, it's good financial practice, right? But most businesses, I mean, that's how you leverage revenue, right? Is through a little bit of debt, right?
Right.
Or a lot of debt.
Yeah, and we did. I mean, we had an operating line, but we never extended the operating line. And so we did leverage, but very conservatively.
Okay.
I think it's just our nature. I think
Yeah.
Dan and Alan, who of course were kind of the original guys that got it going.
Yeah.
Their nature is a fairly conservative, you know, financial practice. You know,
Right.
they you know, it's just rather than flash and glam and you know, cash out. It's more of a long-term play.
Yeah.
And that's kind of who trained me and formed a lot of my financial opinions, was these guys that lived this way. And
Yeah.
so that, you know, it wasn't like we had some big plan. Actually, I mean, the whole plan was always to get Adagio to a financially stable place and then sell. Like, we wanted to get out. I wanted to go do something else. They had other things they want to do. Let's build it. You know, we're financially stable, sell it, get a payday, and bounce.
And then,
and then of course it's changed 1,000 times since that goal was set. You know, but that was the original goal. And really, it was the recession that kind of put a hold to that. We said, okay, let's play a longer term play here. Let's invest in some machinery. Let's make it more profitable. Let's do things. Let's run a real business, not just a kind of a side hustle business.
Right.
And
Well,
it paid off.
yeah, the difference between outsourcing and doing it in-house is pretty huge. Like, and I was looking at some of your, you know, posts on Instagram and stuff like that and some of like your stuff from your website. And it looks like you do all the welding and all the machine, you know, all the everything, which I think is nuts, because a lot of people don't realize that too. If I can pay someone else to do it for cheap, that means it's profitable. And that's not always the case, right? Especially with manufacturing. That's a huge deal. That's a way huge deal.
Well, it is. I mean, but not just from a profit standpoint, but from an inventory and a cash management standpoint.
Wow.
You know, if I'm buying, let's take an extreme, which our biggest competitor was this way, is they would manufacture in China and bring over containers of finished product and then sell it. And on the surface, you might say, okay, that's a good idea, cheaper manufacturing and stuff like that. But what they lacked was the ability to manage inventory and manage SKUs and manage cash. I mean, you're going to spend $100,000 on a container, get it here, and then that money is bound on shelves for months until it sells. And one of the competitive advantages that we discovered that we had by accident is this idea of we can offer more variety, we can offer more options, because we don't have to buy them in quantities of 50 or 100 from a supplier. We can make them in quantities of 1, 5, or 10, depending on our volume, and be able to respond appropriately to the market. And so we were able to, we found ourselves in a much better inventory position, where a lot of our competitors were out of stock, or they couldn't handle the ship times or things like that. We were able to answer all of those calls and provide product to our customers, who then sold it to the end user. And so years and years and years of doing this, you get a reputation that if you want to be serious in the industry, go with Adagio, because they're actually going to be able to supply it. Don't go to XYZ, because there's always these supply issues. There's always all these problems. And we can make on demand. I mean, we got to the point a few years ago where we said, okay, let's say we have nothing in stock except for raw materials. Let's make a waterfall. Just somebody ordered a waterfall, we're going to make it. And we went from raw materials to finished, completed, shipped waterfall in 45 minutes.
Wow.
And now, that's not efficient. I don't want to run my business that way.
Sure.
It's terrible. It's a terrible way of doing it, but we could do it. We could do it.
And that's powerful, though, right?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And if you're ordering from China, you get the order, and you say, okay, you got to be here in 12 weeks or 16 weeks. Yeah. And so that competitive, it was huge. And even if you're outsourcing to other suppliers, they're going to have
win on everybody else.
You got it's not a priority. Your stuff is a priority.
Yeah, and I like what you said there. One thing about the example of getting something from China, because we were starting a business, and that was one of our things, was like, oh man, we'll hop on Alibaba.com and we'll buy 400 products of this and it'll be cheap and we'll ship it here and whatever. But it's so funny that people get that idea, like that outsourcing to China is somehow cheaper, because we actually found what you said. We found a manufacturer actually right here in Utah of something that we wanted to sell. um, we weren't able to manufacture it ourselves because of the nature of the product, but it was actually cheaper to buy it from a US based company than it was to go to China and buy something. You
Yeah.
know,
And then you have all the disadvantages of having
right.
to bring in huge quantities that you
Yeah,
may or not want. If you, I don't know what you're making, but if you want 100 blue and 100 red and 100 green, you
yeah,
order. But let's say you sell 500 red, you're
yeah,
screwed. You got all these blue
yeah,
that nobody wants, and you got all the
right.
green that nobody wants. You wish you had another 400 red, and you don't have it. So 8
Yeah,
weeks later, you get the red.
yeah. No.
And we looked at that.
Oh
And that was
yeah,
the problem.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's so amazing. Like people are like, oh, you know, if it comes from, it's cheaper if you go to China, but actually it's cheaper if you stay in the US.
Often is.
Way cheaper.
Often is. Yeah.
And way cheaper. And I think that, man, I think that's great. Plus you get to like do all, stabilize the whole economy for that. So I want to go backtrack real quick because I think this is pretty fun.
Okay.
You said you sold some pretty high ticket waterfalls to some big places. Like what was like the craziest waterfall you had to come up with and sell and deliver, or was it anybody cool or anything like that?
We sold a ton of waterfalls. So let's back up. About 10 years, well, about 8 years ago, we stopped doing installations.
Okay.
And so before that, we were always scattered all over the U.S.
Sure.
and we'd have offers to go. One of the craziest ones was we had an offer to go to Saudi Arabia to fit. It was actually fixing a waterfall that another person made.
Oh
And they
wow.
found us at a trade show, and they said, "Hey, we've got this." We looked at it. We looked at the specs. We said, "Okay, we know what's wrong. We can fix it." They were going to pay us just an enormous amount of money, and they said, "And we will pick you up at the airport with armed security and escort you to the house or the compound or whatever, and you cannot leave that compound. Like you have
Right.
to stay there until the job is done. Then we
Yeah.
will armed security escort you back to the airport, and you leave." And we were totally excited. We would have done it in a heartbeat. We figured it all out. We had
Yeah.
made a few here and bring some components, and it ended up not working out. But that was a funny one.
That's sweet.
But yeah, I mean, we've made waterfalls and shipped waterfalls to NBA stars, NFL stars. We've done a lot of high end. We've done Hollywood. I don't keep a list of them because I don't really care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we do have some funny stories. We've done. We've had we've had some pretty exciting challenges. As
Okay.
boring as the waterfall manufacturing industry is, there's things that challenge you, and you kind of step beyond your norm or your what you're used to, and those are fun because you have to design it, you have to build it. Doesn't work, you do it again, and then
Right.
get it going. But yeah, there's one project that we did. This was years ago, probably maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and it was installed in a law office in California, and they had already built the office. It was an afterthought, and they wanted us to come in and install a big, it was like 14, 15 feet wide by 10 or 11 feet tall, big glass panel with some fish on it and stuff. And but the challenging thing was plumbing it. There was no plumbing anywhere. They wanted autofill. They wanted a drain. So we had to come up with a system that would work. And in the waterfall industry, anytime you have plumbing, we always assume that it is going to break. Because if it breaks, it's going to ruin stuff, overflow and flood the it can be nasty. And so we built it so that it would work and it would function based on the plumbing that we get there. But we always assumed it's going to work. So we had the fun part was building a system to protect the building in the event that it does fail. So that we have sump systems, we had alarms, and we had all of these warning systems to tell people to shut it down if it fails. And
Yeah.
so we had water sensors, we had sump pumps, we had all of this complex. It was fun, and we went and installed. That was back when we were installing, and so we flew out there, and we had to make the special cart, because the panels were they wouldn't fit through any of the doors of the building unless we did a diagonal, and we went opened both doors corner to corner and fit it exactly through. We had to measure, and we had to cut it to that size. And so we had to build a special cart that we could carry these, these were probably 500-600 pound panels into the building, kind of at a diagonal, and wheel them in and install it. It's kind of fun.
That's funky.
For Waterfall guys, that's like the pinnacle right there.
Yeah, that's the best part. But you've done some really cool stuff like that I've seen on there with like Waterfalls and with like installing them and stuff like that. So how do you manage like the day-to-day stuff with manufacturing and all that jazz going on?
Well, I mean, it's now that we're really not on site, everything that we do, and this is possible because of digital. I mean, everything that we can do, they can send us digital images, they can send us renderings, they can send us drawings. We can incorporate it, send it back, get their approval, build it, and ship it to them with very detailed instructions. We do most of the assembly here. And so now that we're not doing the installation side, we can focus on what we're good at, which is manufacturing. And so we have built reporting systems, we've built tracking systems that as a manager help me to see what we are doing by the numbers, right? It's all about the numbers. And so I can see sales coming into the system, shipments going out, where we're at with these shipments, who's had them, whose desk are they on? Why aren't they moving forward? And we can kind of track everything through the system. And so, whereas 10, 12 years ago, it was just paper. We would literally write it down, hand it to somebody. Meanwhile, it gets lost or water spilled on it. Now, what is it? We can't remember. And so now it's all digital. And it makes managing production much easier. I've got a production manager who oversees the production side. I've got a sales manager kind of oversees the sales in the office, and I coordinate with those two people to make sure that everything's happening between the two of them. And so it's a little challenging. I mean, we've got, we're not huge. We probably have 13, 14 employees, something like that. And but coordinating the efforts of all of these employees to make sure that stuff happens in a timely manner, that's the challenge. But we're able to do it.
Well, that is always a big challenge, no matter what you're doing, right? Trying to like keep that up. Have you ever, you were talking about like getting drawings and stuff like that. Have you ever thought about like getting into like the augmented reality stage of things? Like being able to give someone an app or a phone or something and like point it at the wall and like, this is what your waterfall would look like if it was right here and what you look like.
Yeah, we've actually looked at there's a ton of comp. So we sell and we market primarily in the furniture and accessories industry. All right. So we are on a wholesale basis. We are selling to designers, architects, furniture stores.
Oh, okay.
So the trade shows that we attend are typically furniture based. And in that realm, in the furniture industry, there are a bunch of companies that do that exact thing, have a digital, rendering of a product. We've seen everything where you put this yellow sticker on the wall and it will place the product there. Or you can there's all different types. And we've played with them. We've experimented with them. We've done some test marketing with them. And it was something that never made sense for us.
Right. Well, because you're wholesaling, right?
Largely wholesaling. Certainly a few years ago, we were largely wholesaling. Now we have a portion of our business that sells direct to consumer. But from a wholesale standpoint, maybe if we came up with an app at some time in the future, like a selling tool to try to get people to visualize it, maybe. But up until now, we've experimented it, but we've never pulled the trigger.
Yeah. Well, I just think that like for me, when I hear like that kind of stuff like in the house or stuff like that. I know augmented reality is like a really big deal. Like you can do it with like clothes now, and you can do it with furniture, but you sell mainly to like the Ashleys or RC Willie's or something like that, or?
Yeah, RC Willie's a customer,
Oh, wow.
have been for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we go to the trade shows, that's who we're marketing to. A
Yeah.
big part of our business is designers.
That's
If you
cool.
hire a designer to come and design your office, your home,
Yeah.
they need to have an inventory, a repertoire of resources that they can put places.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Couch guys, they've got plant guys, they've got picture art guys, and so we want to be the waterfall guy. Oh, you want a
Yeah.
waterfall? Yeah, I've got a guy, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of our business.
Wow.
We're marketing to that group of people, so they spec us in jobs.
Oh, wow.
Architects is another similar realm.
Sure, because
what's that?
well, yeah, sure, because it's probably easy for architects to build it into the room versus maybe putting it in afterwards, right?
Right. They can plan for it. They can do electrical. They can, if they want plumbing, they can work with the plumbing.
Right.
And so yeah. So but yeah, then brick and mortar really has been the lifeblood of our business up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the majority of our business was brick and mortar stores. They were 80% of our business, and designers and everything else, catalog, everything else was 20% of our business.
Wow.
And that has just totally flipped. I mean, that's absolutely totally flipped. I mean, the brick and mortar industry, from our perspective, the furniture world is just dying. It is just dying. I mean,
yeah.
we would go to trade shows where we might talk to 200 or 300 furniture stores.
Right.
Now, at a typical trade show, we might talk to 10.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah, most of what we do is talk to end users or designers.
Yeah. So like the little mom and pop couch stores or something like that, they're just dying, huh?
They're dying.
Wow. What do you think? What do you think is going on with that? Like, since you've seen them die off like that.
It's the internet. I mean, if you're going to go to Google or you're going to go to House or Wayfair, and you get such a much broader variety.
Sure.
If you go to the mom and pop store, you're going to see that the 10 suppliers they've decided to sell, right?
Wow.
If you go online and you just Google wall art, you're going to see you're going to be so inundated, you're not going to know how to make a decision, and so you start, refining your, and so just like with every other industry, the internet is just changing the way people buy, and and it's lowering the cost to people because it's a more competitive market. If I've got a brick and mortar store on Main Street, USA, I can sell realistically to a 5 or 10 mile radius, or 20 maybe. Around. That's my draw.
Right.
And so there's not going to be 50 furniture stores in that radius because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You go online, and now you can sell to the whole world, and there's 1 million furniture stores. Now you're competing, and so you're lowering price, you're offering discounts, you're offering specials.
Sure.
So it's actually decreasing the cost to the end user and providing a more robust, option. It makes a lot of sense, and that's what's happening. And so we have noticed that over the last 4 or 5 years, we have gone from 70-80% brick and mortar and larger company sales, and now that consists for us of maybe less than 20%. I don't have the exact numbers, but they call it 15% of our monthly sales are done through the resources that were made up our entire customer base 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just flipped on its head, huh?
Totally flipped.
Yeah. Holy cow. Were you prepared for the internet age when you came to college?
Zero. Exactly zero.
Dude,
I mean, it wasn't until 2007. So we had this long-standing rule: Adagio Waterfalls will not be sold online.
Wow.
Will not do it.
Holy cow.
Can you even imagine? And so up until about 2006, we would not allow it. If somebody put our stuff online, we'd cut them off. We wouldn't sell to them.
Holy cow. You were that aggressive.
We were protecting our brick and mortar stores.
Holy
We're like, hey, this is our lifeblood. We are going to protect, we're going to protect our brick and mortar stores because we don't want, price undercut. We were just told. So eventually some internet companies that were not furniture stores, but waterfall specific internet sites who wouldn't really compete in the furniture world, they said, hey, let's just try it. Let's try it. I said, okay, let's try it. So we had some waterfall specific websites that only sold different types of waterfalls,
Yeah, sure.
this type, garden, and also Adagio.
Yeah.
And within like a year or two, it was doing really well, really well.
Yeah.
It changed our opinion entirely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to, because if you're the one selling it, now it's 2020, right? I wouldn't not think of it not being on the internet. Like, that's the first place you go.
Yeah.
Like Amazon, buy a couch on Amazon,
exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Buy a couch on Amazon, have it show up to your door in 2 days, 3 days, wherever you live, right? If you don't like it, box it up. Or you don't even have to box it up anymore, I don't think. Amazon, you just take the couch. Like, I bought something off of Amazon, and I was like, shoot, I threw the box away. I'm gonna have to go to like FedEx and buy a box and return it.
Right.
Took the thing from me. They're like, okay, you're an Amazon customer. There you go. It's like so easy.
It's ridiculous.
I call it the Amazon effect. Like, Amazon isn't the cheapest, but if you can go get whatever you need at a fair price, have it here in 2 days, and if you need to return it for any reason, you send it back. That's Amazon, right? And that's like the ideal customer service kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and really, they have ruined it. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, it's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazon today is what Costco was 10 or 12 years ago.
Well, yeah.
Where Costco, when you're a Costco member, it's the best. Yeah. But from a supplier standpoint, it's the worst. Like, we stopped selling to Costco because we couldn't afford to sell to Costco.
Yeah.
It was and same with Amazon. We have such a limited exposure on Amazon because we can't afford to sell on Amazon. It's too risky. There's so much fraud and there's so much abuse, especially on high ticket items, that it is, we're actually in the process right now of consolidating our Amazon offerings and making sure that it's a system that we can play in, because it's extremely difficult from a supplier standpoint.
Yeah. So you're with high ticket items, you said there's like a lot of fraud. So like, what do you mean by that?
Somebody orders a $4,000 waterfall and you deliver it and they say, I never got it.
Oh,
and they get their money back. Yeah.
Holy cow. And Amazon, dude, they don't ask any questions.
No questions.
Well, they're like, okay, there's your money. And then your merchant is on the line for that. And merchant accounts accounts don't mess around either.
No, they don't. That's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
That's, it's not just Amazon specific, but it's a whole other world. But yeah, I mean, it's, or the other problem with our, not just high ticket items, but our product specifically is when we package and prepare our product to ship, we package it in such a way that's really, really good at shipping it one time.
Yeah.
But after that, it's terrible. And so, if somebody gets, let's say they buy a $5,000 waterfall and they get it and they unpackage it and like, I'm sick of this. That's not what I wanted. They ship it back or, whatever. It comes back destroyed. I mean, it is, there's nothing we can use. It's just pulverized. And so, they get their money back and we get screwed,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it's very risky. It's a dangerous game to play. The Amazon and the Costco game in fact, Costco has put a ton of small to medium-sized businesses out of business. And Amazon, I would imagine, I haven't heard specifically, but Amazon, I'm sure, has too, because there's the carrot of all this massive market and this huge sale.
Yeah.
And then if you go to market and you don't do it just right, you are sunk with the returns or the change of preference or all of this stuff that's so nice for the consumer, but somebody's paying for that. And it's the supplier.
And it's the supplier. Holy cow. You know what? I didn't realize that and I guess it's because like I'm a pretty straightforward guy. Like if I get something and I don't like it, I might try to return it, but ultimately I'm going to take responsibility for it. But I know there are people out there who would be like, I never got it. Or like, buy something. Well, we can't accept credit cards over a certain amount at the dealership I work at because of that reason. People will just cancel they might put a down payment on it. Well, you can't make a down payment at our dealership with a credit card.
Oh, really?
Because of that reason, because it's like, you give me $3,000 on a credit card, and then 3 days later you cancel it. I'm out $3,000. You have the
I'm
car,
done.
and
Yep.
there's no way. I mean, it'd be extremely difficult to get that back. So
Oh, yeah.
that's
Oh, it's
interesting.
impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You're gone in the wind. You just write that off. But
Yep.
too many times of that, and you're done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez, man. So, so then you sell a little bit on Amazon. What are the kind of like the checkpoints to sell on Amazon for you guys? Like, what are like, okay, if this kind of order comes in, then we'll sell it, or do you ever like reject an Amazon kind of deal?
No, not yet. So we're actually in the process right now of redoing our entire Amazon strategy.
Okay.
And I don't really want to talk about it just yet because
Sure. Sure.
some of it we haven't announced to our suppliers and things like that. But
Yeah, that's
we are acutely aware of the Amazon pros and cons, and we want to what we want to do is turn Amazon into a profitable sales
yeah.
avenue, right?
Right.
And that doesn't mean shotgun everything on Amazon. It means specific products, under specific terms, and
Yeah.
market it in a specific way to set the expectation so that customers, when they get it, aren't shocked. And that's a big problem. Is I did not expect this, right? Oh, I didn't know this weighed 400 pounds. Well, it's a marble waterfall. It's going to be heavy. So,
Holy
so
cow.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But Amazon, it really relatively is a fairly small
Yeah.
source of revenue for us.
Okay.
It's really never been a big,
Sure. Sure.
a big,
Well,
but we have good business with other online
sure.
retailers, and
Yeah. Well, I think having an online presence is good anyway. But yeah, I think that's funny because I've seen that so much with customers. But what's funny is like, so that in the automotive world, they have that JD Power rankings, right?
Yeah.
Where they rank manufacturers on consumer basis, right? But here's the biggest thing about that, which is what you brought up, is if a customer doesn't know how to work it, they think it's broken.
Yes.
Like, no, it's not supposed to do that. Well, it was never designed to do that, right? But they didn't know that. They thought it was broken. They gave you.
Yeah.
So like I work at Honda, and Honda is generally like a pretty sturdy car.
Oh yeah.
Your opinion on Honda is what, but normally they rank pretty high on the JD Power rankings, but they fall in the last couple of years because of that, because a customer wasn't explained how something worked, or they thought it did something that it didn't, and they just said the car was broken. So I think it's funny that like people don't realize, yeah, you bought a Waterfall, man, it's going to be a couple $100, and it's probably,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's all expectations.
Yeah.
It's setting appropriate expectations, and then they're easy to match. I mean, if you don't set appropriate expectations, and
I like that,
whatever's normal, it doesn't meet their expectations, then it's your fault.
Oh yeah.
I can think of a story. We sold a big Waterfall, one of our largest. It wasn't custom; it was a production Waterfall to a very predominant person in Las Vegas, and this was sold through a dealer of ours. And we sold it. It wasn't super. It was probably about a $5,000 or $6,000, Waterfall, which is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they hired a contractor to install it, and the contract turned it on, and it was really loud, and it wasn't working. And so they're talking to our dealer who they bought it from, and they're going through basic troubleshooting steps. Did you check this? Did you twist this? All these. We have a standard.
Yeah.
Everything was right, and so we get a phone call. It says, you sold us a defective product to this customer in Las Vegas. It doesn't work. You need to send a new one out. And I said, well, first of all, we sold thousands of that product to people all over the world, and they're not defective. There's 2 or 3 tests that you can run. And so we ran some tests, and it still wasn't working. So we thought, okay, maybe they got a bad pump. So we send them another, $250 pump out, but same thing.
Yeah.
And so something's not right. So it just happened to be that this was all going down, and we had a trade show in Vegas that we were going to go to in like 3 weeks. And so we said, look, if they can hold their breath for a few weeks, we're going to be there. The main guys, we're going to be there.
Yeah.
When we can visit them some evening after the trade show, we'll check it out. So we worked it out. We got there, and people were great. It's funny. we walked into the building where it was, and in the entryway, there were like 2 of our waterfalls in the
Oh, wow.
foyer of this building. I'm like, yeah, cool. And so we go up and we talk to the people, and looked at a few things and got talking to them. And this is a big waterfall. It
Yeah.
requires 30 gallons of water. 30
Oh,
gallons of water.
wow. Oh, my God.
And they were putting in 2 gallons of water, 2 or 4.
Oh, what?
And we're like, well, why didn't you fill it up to the full? Why didn't you fill it all the way? There's a fill line there. It says fill it up to here. Oh,
Yeah.
we didn't see that line. And we just thought 2 gallons was enough. And
Oh, my goodness.
it takes 30 gallons. It's a huge, like 2 gallons is like nothing,
Yeah.
And,
that probably doesn't even
it doesn't even. And so we happened to have some water with us. So we brought 30 gallons up, filled it up, pushed the on button, worked perfect.
Oh, my gosh.
So yeah, it's sometimes it's about expectations. It's about,
Yeah.
in their mind, they might have had a little garden fall or a little desktop thing that, I just put a cup of water and it works fine.
Sure.
All waterfalls are that way, or 2 gallons is certainly enough.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is, in that particular instance, it was just they didn't have enough water. They just did not have enough water. It sounds so ridiculous, but we see stuff like that a lot, where people call and it's your fault. And then so the trick is setting an expectation during customer service in a kind and a patient way,
Sure.
and saying, look, we're very experienced in this. We're going to stand behind our product, but here's a few things you can do that can probably fix your problem. And lo and behold, do these few things and they work.
There it is. Yeah. No, that's nuts. That happens so much. But you know what? Here's the funny thing is that it's a pretty common problem. Not with just manufacturing though, right? Or sales, but it's a problem everywhere. People I've been doing this for 20 years or whatever, right? So I assume that if you have come to me, if you've figured out a way to find out what I am and what I do, right? Then I'm assuming that you've also done the homework on what it takes to maintain the product or what the service is about, right? But a lot of people don't, right? They kind of just get excited and they're like, It's like,
yeah, you're right. I mean,
wow.
And the other thing is, there's just a tendency with the way that we do our distribution, our sales and distribution in the U.S., which is largely manufacturer, importer, or distributor sells to a wholesaler who sells to a dealer who sells to the consumer. There's a lot of times that there's information lost in that process. And, when we meet a designer at a trade show who falls in love with our product, and then she's like, oh, I've got a perfect job for it. She pitches it in front of the customer. The customer likes the idea. They buy it. It's expensive. We ship it. Then they have a contractor. I've heard this 1,000 times.
Right.
Oh, I hired my contractor who's been a contractor for 30 years and he knows everything. I'm like, well, how many waterfalls has he installed? Well, none. Like,
okay, yeah.
Well, like, why'd you hire a contractor? Why didn't you just hire a painter or why'd you hire the guy that grooms your dog? At that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so
that's nuts.
and there's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people validate the functionality or based on who they have install it or who they have manage it.
Right.
And a lot of times they just don't know. And so it's our job as a manufacturer to, as best we can, communicate that to everyone.
Absolutely.
If you own it, if you work with it, if you fix it, if you install it, if you sell it, you need to know all these little nuances. And so that's kind of one of the things that we focus on is getting that out to the world.
Yeah. Well, so how do you talked a lot about like setting up expectations, which I think is really important and really, really strong. How do you do that? Like, is that in your sales training? Is that in your customer service training? Or do you like put videos out, like how-to videos or something?
Yeah. All of the above. Everything you just mentioned, we've done. Yeah. So from a sales standpoint, when we're selling to our dealer base, we do sales training with them. Hey, look, here's how you talk about the waterfalls. And this is how you set the expectations on what customers can expect. But from an end user standpoint, so one of the things, if you look at our reviews online, one of the biggest negatives that we have is the installation process. We kind of built the waterfalls with the assumption that most people that buy our waterfalls are going to have somebody install it for them.
Sure.
But
Okay.
but what we've discovered is that a lot of people do try to do it themselves. Hey, I can do this. How
Oh,
I need a
sure. Yeah.
drill and a level, and I'll figure it
God.
out. And that's fine. And under normal circumstances, that's okay.
Sure.
But we kind of wrote our instructions and our videos catered to the contractor-minded person.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
do-it-yourselfer who's just kind of aggressive, they might skip some steps or might not understand a few
Sure.
things. So one of the things we've recently done, in fact, we just launched this week, is we contracted with a company called Built, BILT, and it's an online app.
Okay.
And what they do is they do a totally digital rendering of the product and the installation.
Wow.
And so, whereas before we were doing text
Yeah.
and photographs and like YouTube videos kind of showing, oh, this is how you
Yeah.
do it, feed it, and whatever.
Right.
Now we have this full digital rendering of every nuanced step of the installation, and it just clarifies things. I mean, there's
Wow.
picture 1,000 words, a video is a billion words,
Yeah.
and it's just so much more clear. So we're super excited, in kind of this continual improvement of the business.
Yeah.
This was one of the things that we've just lacked. It's been one of our weaknesses for a lot of years, and so we're hoping that with this kind of innovation, we will overcome some of those hardships, clarify a lot of things, confusing things that were
Yeah.
previous in our installation instructions, and just make the overall experience better. That's the whole goal, is floor to ceiling, a positive experience for our customers.
Wow. So I think that's amazing. So it's an app with a digital rendering of how to install it. So
Yeah.
how did they come up with that? Like, so tell me, like, I'm trying to picture it in my head. Like, so what does that look like?
Yeah, you got to check it out. I mean, you can just
Okay.
go download the app, and
Okay.
there are a ton of manufacturers on everything. Lifetime, which is a Utah company, they're
Yeah.
on there. I mean, I can't think of all of them. There's just dozens.
So
And dozens.
basically what it did was it took the instruction manual, digitized it with like videos and frequently asked questions and like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, it's
for
awesome.
everything.
Everything. And so
Wow.
what we've done over the last 6 weeks or so is they kind of put it together, they send it to us, and no, this is wrong, do this, change this. So
Sure.
anyway, we've refined it so that it's kind of our stamp of approval,
Yeah.
and that actually just went live this week. And so we're starting with the marketing standpoint of it,
Mm-hmm.
communicating it to the customer. We're going to have a QR code that, instead of getting
Wow.
written instructions, now you're just going
Yeah.
to get a sticker with a QR code. You
Holy
scan it,
cow.
it prompts you to download the app, and then boom, and it's a step-by-step instruction. Step 1, screw this
That
in.
is,
Step 2, feed this down,
wow, that's amazing. Holy crap. Cause see that the last thing, cause I don't want to take all your time, but I just think that's crazy because a lot of people now are doing it by themselves. Like
They are.
I even had, so I work at a dealership and I even had one guy take it to the extreme where he bought a towing package. And if you buy if you buy this certain car and you want it to tow this much, you have to put a cooler on the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so he comes up to me as the sales manager and he goes, I want to buy the towing package. And he's like, I just want the parts. And I'm like, what do you mean you just want the parts? He's like, well, I'm just going to put in this transmission cooler by myself. And I was like, oh man, cause you have to hike that car up and almost take that transmission out to hook this cooler up. I mean, it's extremely complicated. You have to have certain equipment, but yeah, I just can't believe that some people just like, oh, transmission cooler, I'll put it in myself. Like,
Yeah.
what? Holy cow.
So
So
that's a lot.
waterfall,
That's a lot.
yeah, 1,400-pound waterfall, 600-pound waterfall, 30 gallons
Yeah.
of water. I'll do it myself.
I'll do it. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
But I mean, if you can do it, kudos, man. But I think that app I got to tell some people about that app because I think that's an amazing idea. Because instruction manuals, I honestly, and it might be because I'm a dude, I don't look at it, man.
No, they're terrible. And
Yeah,
even the best ones. And ours were good. Like full color. It looked like you got a magazine. I mean, high quality print, detailed written instructions, step by step. It was still deficient.
Oh,
we
wow.
still had problems.
Yeah.
And so we're excited to see kind of what this what this will do for our customer experience.
Jeez. Well, you got to let me know about that. So like what I guess to to like let you go and wrap up, but tell me like one of the things that like the most valuable lesson you learned, and if there's someone out there in like a similar position you were 20 years ago, like what advice would you give them? Like, what do we do?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, there's the standard answers: work hard. You
Yes.
got to show up. You got
Right.
to be there. But I'll be honest. It's been so. I've been at this since '03, so that's 17 years.
Right.
It boggles my mind how instrumental tiny, minuscule decisions were, and how minuscule, big, massive decisions were, right?
Jeez.
Like when I look back and I can see like on a whim, shooting from the hip, totally unexpected, I made some snapshot decision. Oh, let's just try this.
Yeah.
That turned into an entire part of our business.
Wow.
That was like, we wouldn't be here if we had not done that.
Right.
And then huge multi-million-dollar contracts and deals and sign here and do this, lawyers involved, lawsuits. At the end of the day, they just fizzled away and we're nothing, And so I would say watch your small decisions, because you never know how incredibly instrumental they can be in the future. They can turn into big, big things.
Well, yeah, just like you're like, all right, I guess I'll buy this company, and now you're here.
Yeah. That's kind of how it was. Yeah.
Holy cow. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being on. And if I'll let everybody know this app and to check you guys out. And but thanks so much for coming on, man. And I appreciate your time. And other than that, we'll sign off. And gosh, thank you for being here.
No problem. Hey, how can I listen to your podcast?
So you can listen to it anywhere. So you can listen to it. So this episode will be up probably in about 2 weeks, because I send this recording to my buddy, and then his turnaround time, it's his full-time job. But you can listen to it on Apple, Spotify. I publish it on Anchor. But what I will do for you is I'll send you what I did for Rich. I'll send you the recording. So what I have a lot of my and the video, when I get the video up, because what I have a lot of customers do, or not customers, sorry, people who come on my podcast, I'll give them the recording and the video, and then you can use it for whatever you want.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
So I have one guy who put it up on his website.
Yeah.
Or one guy who took the audio and turned it into a blog of like his stories and how stuff worked, or whatever. You can do whatever you want, and it's free. You don't have, I don't do anything for that. So yeah, man, thank you so much. So
no problem. I look forward to it.
Yes, sir. Bye.